Hi everyone. Let's take a look at some of the specific challenges that you might face while trying to identify animals from camera trap images. As always, we use all of our own images taken right here in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Let me take this opportunity to thank both Finger Lakes Community College and the Community College Undergraduate Research Initiative for providing support for this project. Also, special thanks to these folks, which are essentially the camera trap team at Finger Lakes Community College, along with lots and lots of students, both past and present, too numerous to mention. Here are the top 5 ways I think camera trap images are different than using images, say, in a magazine, a field guide, or even looking at animals in the field. First, many of our images are blurry. Second, the animal may not be fully shown in the image. Third, because we use almost exclusively infrared flash, that means no color photos at night or in dim light. That flash also creates misleading tones on animals, leading you to think that they're different colors than they really are. And finally, size comparisons need to be done with caution. Okay, let's take these issues one at a time. First, blurry images. A blurry image occurs because the object is moving too fast for the shutter speed. That gray squirrel in the top left corner is still pretty easy to identify even though he's not in sharp focus. But how about that animal in the lower left? Can you tell that that's a red fox? In addition to blurriness, distortions can occur when something is moving very quickly in front of the camera. That's because the SD card is written in a very specific way. So when an object is in motion, it can really change the shape that's captured on the image. Look at that tire in the bottom right. Obviously that's a round tire, but it appears oval because of this effect. Well, what do we do when we're faced with blurry images? If it's a daytime photo, you can still use color, but we can always use shape and size as cues. Look for diagnostic features, like those black stockings that I pointed out and that red fox. And realize that the leg, the snouts, and any other parts of the animal are really going to look different because of this distortion. Finally, if you're in doubt, just say unknown animal. That's often the best answer. We're often faced with images that only show partial animals, but sometimes we can still make an identification. How about this bottom left here? Can you tell that this is the folded over tail of a gray squirrel? How about up here? Did you note both fawns in this photo? I thought those were relatively easy. This one down here in the bottom is a little bit harder. Now at first this animal looks very large because it's close to the camera, but if you have a look here you can see that the camera isn't photographing at a very large distance. So this is a smaller animal, in fact a woodchuck. Now I have to be honest with you, I don't think I could have identified this as a raccoon by that eyeball and eyelashes, but there were many more photos within that capture, so I was able to tell that it was a raccoon. For me, it's not whether parts are visible, but are the right parts visible. Sometimes you only need a little bit of an animal to be able to identify it. One thing that I do to practice with this is take an animal that's fully shown and crop it, only show my students a piece of it. And this way we can practice this technique and still be assured that we're getting the proper identification in the end. And please remember, unknown animal is perfectly acceptable, and as you get better at this, maybe you'll have fewer and fewer of those. Well, as you've already seen, night photos are usually going to be black and white. So what do we do? Well, we can't rely on color to help us out, but we can use all the other characteristics. The shape of the body, the tail, the shape of the ears, and in this case, you can even see the black stockings on this red fox. I want to point out one other thing that happens with the flash, and that is that sometimes animals are going to look a lot different depending on how the flash is hitting them. So let's take a look at this animal in the bottom right here. Can everybody identify this as an eastern cottontail? Certainly its face and its chest were not this white, but they're taking the full force of the flash, so they're very bright. This distorts what this animal looks like and doesn't give us an accurate color. Now compare that to the animal that's standing beyond the flash, this coyote. The only things that are visible are the eye shine. On the left here we have an animal that's partially in the flash and partly out. I call this the flash zone right here. And you can see this nice arc that's much lighter than all the vegetation around it. That's where the flash is at its strongest. And you can see that it's crossed this raccoon right here so that this side looks very light and the top looks much darker. In reality, they're probably the same color, but the flash has washed out the color here, but retained it where the flash isn't as strong. Let's take a look at one more example of this. Here's a possum that was captured moving away from the camera. And on the left photo, the first one, you can see how light he looks. In the second image, you can see how dark he looks. Same exact animal, but looks like a completely different one because once he was inside the flash zone, and in the other one he was outside of the flash zone. Looking at all of the animals in a single sequence is really going to be helpful. Finally, make your size comparisons very carefully. You really need to have animals that are both the same distance away from the camera in order to accurately compare them to each other. Here's a few images from many years ago when we had cameras that had incandescent flash, so we had white light and color photos at night. The coyote on the left and the red fox on the right I feel are exactly the same distance from the camera, so we can make an accurate comparison between the size of these two animals. If they're not the same distance from the camera, forced perspective is going to give you an inaccurate comparison of size. Let's just do one more. How big is a raccoon compared to a possum? Well, in this case, it's this big. And you can see by toggling back and forth, I can really get a good idea of the size difference between these two animals. Okay, a few final thoughts. First, identifying camera-trapped wildlife is a skill different than identifying them in the field. So you may have to spend some time with this. I like to say that it takes purposeful practice to improve. If you're having some issues or you would just like to talk with people about some of your identifications, I encourage you to participate in the eMammal group discussions. They have a fantastic feature that allows anyone to start a discussion or anyone to join into an existing one. Finally, I want to make sure that everybody's having fun. If you're not enjoying yourself as well as learning on this project, then I really want you to contact the project manager. We want good data from you folks, but we also want you to be getting something out of this in return. Well, thanks for watching. If there's a quiz associated with this, please take it now, as it would be a good idea to do everything while it's fresh in your mind. Thank you.